basically, I'm an artist, and an artist doesn't mean to say that he's only uh, a one-dimensional artist, because he has to think, he has to see, he has to touch, he has to feel. First step that I took, both in painting and in film, was very relevant. You know what I mean? I think, to recreate a culture, you have to go into all the layers. I think Umrao Jaan was a very seminal film for me. It was talking about a lot of very delicate and sensitive things that Lucknow is all about, people of Lucknow are all about, the pain of Lucknow is all about, and the story of this girl is all about.
Hi, very good to meet you. Finally, even if it is virtually, because one has been a great admirer of your works and Umrao Jaan especially. So I jumped at the opportunity when I was told that it's getting re-released, in a restored 4K version. I mean, what better thing to think of? And in fact, I was watching it again, before this interview. I'll begin my questions, on it specifically, but looking at your world at large. Now, how have we known you? We have known you to be, a man who wears several hats, multidimensional, many interests. And I was looking at the world of Umrao Jaan, and how many splendored it is, be it culture, literature, music, dance. I was wondering, was that aspect which somewhere vibed with you? Or was it the fact that, it's a story which is set in your birthplace and kind of, which made you gravitate towards it? Like your other films also kind of go back to Awadh in that sense.
Well, the thing is that, as you said, multifaceted. So basically, I'm an artist, and an artist doesn't mean to say that he's only a one-dimensional artist, because he has to think, he has to see, he has to touch, he has to feel, he has to smell. So, I mean, an artist is anyway a kind of a holistic creature, he or she has journeys into life and worlds, and out of that we derive inspiration to do what we are doing. And some people find an easy connect with their world, or with their past, or with their present. Some people start getting confused and start getting lost, and sometimes you take the first step, which is always an important step. So the first step that I took, both in painting and in film, was very relevant. You know what I mean? If I hadn't made Gaman, I would have lost my way. You know what I mean? Gaman at least made me look at people of my kind of region and ilk and type, and take them into a kind of an alien hybrid milieu like Bombay. And I started feeling that kind of dichotomy in their lives and their disconnect with their roots. So the connection with the roots and disconnection with the roots became a very important issue for me, as a kind of a thinker, as a creator, as a person who has, I mean, who uses all art forms to tell the story. You know what I mean? So here, you can't tell the story without poetry. You can't tell the story without music, because all the pain and the pathos lies in these elements of storytelling. The music and the poetry, and poetry becomes a very important driving force, because for it has been, let's say, I would say, the only the biggest driving force in art. When nothing was happening, it was poetry. You know what I mean? So poetry was a very important factor for me, and I'm not a poet. Actually, I'm nothing. I'm just inspired, by many things, and I inspire many things. So I'm just a kind of a, what should I say? Horniman circle type of situation, so everything leads into me and leads out of me, and I feel that I don't exist. So that is what I think was the beginning of this multifaceted thought process. And I still continue that, because I think if I didn't have the ability to paint and sketch, I would not be able to make creative a moving frame in the film. So I think all these things came together, and also the people I met and the kind of inspirations I derived from people. I think it all led to all this. And then Umrao Jaan came. I think Umrao Jaan was a very seminal film for me. It was talking about a lot of very delicate and sensitive things that Lucknow is all about. People of Lucknow are all about. The pain of Lucknow is all about. And the story of this girl is all about. So that is how I think I would begin talking about my foray into art.
Mhm, mhm. But this, what you were saying about the people and the place, Gaman, Umrao Jaan, but even your films after Umrao Jaan engage with the people and places, right? Which are integral to you.
I think that cannot be left. I cannot leave that. Because the moment I leave that, I will be totally lost, because there's a lot of beauty to be shared. And it's not easy to feel and share beauty. Beauty has to be a very organic part of your evolution. And that evolution actually gives you taste for beauty, you know what I mean? And you see then beauty in everything, in every place, in every person. But the starting point has to come from your own kind of initial awakenings. So that is what I think Umrao Jaan offered me.
Mhm. You're talking about how seminal it is, Umrao Jan. In terms of the awadhs that we see, including the grandeur and the decadence, the like I said, the language, art, culture, people. What does Awadh really signify for you, and signify for you particularly when it comes to Umrao Jan?
I think Awadh is the angst of my childhood. Is the kind of ethos of growing up there, awakening to a lot of very fine expressions of pain and through poetry and music, and a lot of characters who've like walked the earth there. Like people like, I think, Wajid Ali Shah, how they looked at poetry, how they looked at music, how they looked at dance. So I think all these elements were Awadh for me, and a lot of people don't understand what Awadh for them is, because I think they all dashed around. For each person has a different Awadh. A rickshawala sleeping on his rickshaw in the burning heat is also Awadh. And somebody uh, sleeping in Taj Mahal Hotel is also Awadh. So Awadh is really anything, today, and it's nothing. So these are all very nebulous, intangible feelings, but they've come together in when it enters the realm of classicism, when it enters the realm of art, then it finds a very deep positioning. And that's what Awadh was for me. And through this book, if this book wasn't there, maybe there would be no Awadh for me. So I like that. I mean, a lot of people have led me in and out of Awadh. Even Anjuman is for me, the epitome of the, the crumbling Awadh of today. It's got the vulnerability, it's got the beauty, at the same time, it's got a helplessness to, to changes which are inevitably going to create ugliness. So that way, Awadh does have a lot of. In fact, when I was working in Calcutta and I was working with Mr. Ray in advertising, and that's the time when I used to admire how somebody like him can get so absorbed in his culture and celebrate his own culture. And that's when I thought to myself, okay, why is Awadh missing out this opportunity? Why is it gone and lost itself in Bollywood with no connection to the the kind of elements and nuances that evoke a milieu, So that's how Awadh came alive as a kind of a metaphor for filmmaking while I was in Bengal. I think people of Bengal are very sensitive to their milieu, and fortunately, they've had a Ray. If they hadn't had a Ray and a Mridal Sen and Ritik Ghatak, they would have been lost in the woods, because there's so much to say and so much to offer, so much they've seen, that it has to be put into kind of context. And I think cinematic context is the best context to in today's day and age.
Mhm. You're talking about the space and how you respond to it. If I were to ask you cinematically, what went into recreating it for the screen? I mean, I was watching the film this morning and I was taken in with the words, the sets, the costumes, the music, the choreography. It all seems to come together to build a world. I wanted to understand a bit from you in terms of how you went about recreating it.
I think, to recreate a culture, you have to go into all the layers, and you have to explore yourself to be able to you have to go deep within to understand those layers. You have to understand the power of light and sound, how it evokes nostalgia, the power of imagery, how it creates a feeling and emotion, the power of the body movement or the body language, how that tells a story. And that's where, things like ghazal and kathak, they became very, very important. I think her whole story is told through kathak and ghazal, and you don't realize what kind of power these two things can impart to a creative woman like Umrao Jaan or a Rekha performing Umrao Jaan. It's like it's like a huge bomb. People can't understand what it can do. But when I delved into it and I worked into all the details of the poetry, and then from the poetry we went into the music, and from the music I went into the singing. So each person was thirsty to receive and give more than what they could. You know what I mean? Everybody, in the whole game was thirsty to receive and give more, add more value to what we were trying to do. So that I think made a lot of difference. And then also going through the whole book every day, hearing it out in my headphone or in my cassette player in the car, it made me imagine a lot of things which you leave to it becomes erased from the human mind. So I think all these things come back in sharper focus. And as they come back in sharper focus, they begin to create their own power of or a way of storytelling. So this happens very organically. It happens step by step. You don't even know you've taken a step. Then you don't even know that you've taken the third step and the fourth step and the fifth step, till you feel that, oh God, this has been quite a kind of absorbing journey, and it's added magic at every level. So that's how, I mean, understanding just pure textiles. So the textile was telling the story. I didn't go to shops to buy clothes. I went into cupboards and trunks to find clothes that had already, and had a story in their fragrance, So these were like from my mother, from different friends of my mother, and people like that. So the textile became a very rich. I think for me, textile is the first step of telling a story, and then second is really sketching it out and imagining it out. So I think, does this confuse you?
No, it kind of gives a very interesting and different perspective that the texture of the place could emerge from the textiles. I was struck by one comment you made about, how the Awadh culture also kind of got appropriated in a manner by Bollywood. Is it the Muslim socials that you are referring to, or this whole Tawayaf narrative, which Bollywood has been playing with? Is that what you mentioned when you say that?
I think I would start from the creative talent.
Okay.
Creative talent itself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, for me, Rahi Masum Raza was a giant, and it was my ambition that he should write for me, and he wrote the dialogues for Anjuman, and those dialogues are to die for. You know what I mean? He has given so much. He has breathed so much life into those characters through his dialogue. So when he saw Gaman, he said, seeing that film, I felt like I was, the protagonist, the taxi driver, Ghulam Hassan. I felt like him, that I am also driving the taxi of my pen. So the pen becoming a taxi became a kind of it hit me so hard, coming from Rahi Masum Raza. And obviously he didn't say it for himself. He said it for his lot, you know what I mean? So I think people are driven to do things which I think is not coming from their soul. So a lot of soul has been poured into Bollywood. A lot of very cultured souls have gone there, and they've become rahis, you know what I mean? अजनबी शहर के अजनबी रास्ते मेरी तन्हाई पर मुस्कुराते रहे मैं बहुत देर तक यूं ही चलता रहा तुम बहुत देर तक याद आते रहे. So I mean, that kind of being lost in the maze of people and in the maze of projects which have actually I think it's not that there haven't been people. There have been people who've gone in deeply into cultures and poetry and music and all that. Pyasa, other films like that, So, but I think the Awadh identity I couldn't find, So for whatever reasons, I couldn't identify with any Awadhi kind of a flavor, And even now, if I go to Awadh, I don't find anything. Whatever I've found, I've just created and it's gone, There's no Awadh now there for you to see. It's totally intangible, you know what I mean?
What about Ray's depiction of it in Shatranj Ke Khiladi? What did you think of that?
I think, first of all, as an artist, as a filmmaker, he's a very meticulous and a very detailed kind of a director. He goes into great details. But he depicted Munshi Premchand's cynical depiction of Awadh, you know what I mean? He was trying to see the dichotomy of contradictions and this and that. I don't look at Awadh like that. I look at it with a lot of heartfelt sympathy, you know what I mean? And the other thing is that I didn't like certain portrayals, like Sanjeev Kumar didn't come through as a Awadhi character. He didn't have those kind of nuances which could have been really mind-blowing, because the film is of just two characters, the two chess players, and then this overarching Wajid Ali Shah who's waiting to be deposed, So I think the effort was good. It was authentic visually in many ways. Cinematically, it was very nice. But I think somewhere it didn't have the empathy for Awadh that I desire.
Coming to the obvious question which would come to you, again and again, which is the lead role of Umrao Jaan and Rekha playing it. Was she always your first choice, or were you considering other people as well for the role?
There have been other people, like, I've worked with, like, Smita Patil was there, but and
For
then
this particular role, were you considering anyone else, or was she your first choice?
she was the first definite choice. The other choices were just wavering choices. But when I saw her picture in a magazine and the look in her eyes, I realized that it's this look which will tell the story. Not see, every eye is different. You know what I mean? And every eye moves in a certain kind of has its own narrative movement. You know what I mean? So I felt that this person is the only person who has the synchronization of look and feel. So then, there was no looking back, and then I think it was just building confidence in each other to do this. And how she got into it, and she got totally absorbed into it, and how I created an ecosystem for her, and how she created her own ecosystem to become Umrao Jaan, to become the character, which I think that's the greatest, one of the greatest miracles of my life, to have found her to do this.
Mhm. Was it also because she was poised at that particular juncture in her career where she was looking beyond, the mainstream cinema, or on the flip side, was her star value somewhere of consequence for your project as well?
See, half of it is her question. The other half is that maybe she was on the brink of stardom of some kind, you know what I mean? And she was not an unknown person. She was a known person. She was a recognized person. She was star material. She'd come in good films like Hope Surat and all that. So she was there, and she was definitely, she would have driven the film, and which she did. But the cerebral decision and choice is a different story. You know what I mean? It's a
Mhm,
matter of
mhm.
fate also.
Mhm, mhm. Beyond her, I was kind of looking at casting in general. It's kind of a coup that you pulled off. For me, even small roles like the one that Gajanan Jagirdar does, or Mukri does, or Bharat Bhushan does, or the old stars. Then you had Shaukat Kafi. Uh, there's a certain meticulousness and thought behind it. If you could share some of that with us.
Actually, these people became larger than life. They become more real than real. And that is what helped Rekha also, because I thought it's one way of directing her was to create a kind of what shall I say, a milieu in which all these people were so authentic that, it would just, she had to organically fit into that, you know what I mean? So all these people were amazing, I think. Even Bharat Bhushan, that little presence of his was is very elevating. It's a great tribute to him also, Jagirdar Saab. He was also, I think, he fitted into that world. Deena Pathak also, Shaukat Kaifi also, and Nasir was amazing. I think he was skeptical about that role, and still, I think he did wonders. He added so much punch and humor to it that, which, he didn't know Urdu that well, but he had the ways of playing with his expressions and his words, so which added a lot. His scenes with Rekha are amazing. I think scenes of Rekha with all her co-stars is just, I think, to me, very, have a very powerful alchemy.
Mhm, mhm. The film is obviously of its time. I was wondering, how do you think it resonates in today's times where, a certain awareness about feminism, patriarchy has come to play? Because I was noticing so many things which kind of reached out to me, in terms of how the beauty is defined for a woman, the skin color, the fact that men have been betraying her all the while, the fact that a woman kind of being seen as this a repository of the family honor. Also, the whole idea of the quirks of fate versus self determination, which I thought was a interesting aspect to her character. I would want you to dwell a bit on how it resonates in this day and age.
See, I can give you a very brief answer.
Sure.
See, truth is timeless, and truth has always been the truth forever, because that's how religions are going on the basis of timeless truths. You know what I mean? And that's how human beings are. I think minds are working on timeless truths. And all said and done, people go back to the same timeless truth. And sometimes, cultures deny the truth. Sometimes cultures celebrate the truth. But here, I mean, I looked at the truth from a very humane point of view. I think being humane is very important, because if you're humane, you're adding another dimension to the truth. So that's what came from my parents, my father, my mother. And I think if they were not there, maybe I wouldn't see this character the way I saw this character. So, and then, I mean, I'm nothing, no, I just don't know anything. I just had a kind of something telling me in my mind how to see things, you know what I mean? And that I give full credit to my milieu and my parents. In fact, my book Zikr has a kind of a trajectory of this evolution and through relationships, places, and projects. So I think the fact that it's resonating still is, I don't know, it's the testimony to that truth. And even the sense, a sense of beauty has its own timelessness. Sometimes, beauty is something that people start celebrating once it becomes quaint and old, and then they say, oh, this is that style of work and it's so nice. But in its time, people don't understand it. You know what I mean? So I think that way we could, through kind of a collective teamwork, achieve that beauty. That collective teamwork, that inspirational teamwork was amazing, because 1 and 1 became 11. Each person brought to the table much, much more than I had expected. You know what I mean? And that, because I think of them being confronted to this timeless truth.
How has the restoration turned out? Could you tell a bit about that? Because, I was watching it on YouTube today, terrible print, but I was watching it because I wanted to relive, see it again. How has the restoration turned out, and who has done it? I mean, something about that.
National Heritage Archives, they've set up a mission to restore film, the Government of India, under the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, NFDC. So all these people, they've chosen films, and I think they've chosen all my films to restore, because today, it's very, very difficult to look after a digital print, to look after a celluloid print, and forget the negative. So what had happened was that my worldwide controller had kept the negatives in his cupboard, and it got congealed, and in that 15 minutes were missing also. So finally, we went to the National Film Archives, and they found print also from their archives. So they created the whole digitizing process through that, and frame by frame. I think you should talk to them how they do it, because because without that, there's no future of the film world. You know what I mean? How so many films will go away. Whatever has gone in public domain on the net, in the cloud, will be there. Otherwise, physical films will just evaporate. So that's how, this became a very big challenge. And in the process, what I did was that I chose certain frames, and we grabbed those frames and created a book, So the book that's going to come out on the same day is a coffee table book of 250 photographs, taken both from the frames of the digitized film, and also from Kamath Photo Flash and some that I had. So this is going to be a big challenge in future, that people will not have any kind of stills of their films left. You know what I mean? Because the weather is not very conducive for that, unless all these things are kept under certain conditions. They'll finish. So I think the government awakening to this is timely and important.
Just a couple of more queries that I had, since I've got time from you. Umrao Jan's figure is kind of a prototype for me of the courtesan, that we've seen on screen. Pakiza was there before it. I mean, I know. If you could tell us a bit about that culture and its significance, because a lot of us, and particularly the younger generation, perhaps would have no clue of the significance of, that whole culture which was there. Again, related to our.
Let's be very frank. I've never experienced that culture. I've experienced the larger milieu of that culture, the Awadh aristocracy, and the ghazal and the thumri and the dadra and the singing and all that. But I don't know the mechanism of the kotha. I just invented it from the book, what was there in my own imagination, and created the life of a young helpless girl in that situation. So, and to some extent it's true, and that way there would be 100 truths in that kind of cultures. So this is one such truth. You know what I mean? And like in the book, this must be the life of many courtesans the writer has experienced, and put it into one character. So I think that way the book itself leads you into that zone, and which is a big service he has done, Mirza Hadi Ruswa, to society, to write that novel. But my contribution is just my own imagination, and the fact that I'm from Lucknow and Awadh. So the film is more about Awadh and Lucknow and being a woman in that predicament. It's got no, I don't have any claim to have much exposure to that courtesan world. You know what I mean?
It was also remade later. What did you think of that? Did you see the remake of the film as well?
No, I think it was, I wouldn't have been able to go through it. You know what I mean? So, because there would have been too many comparisons in my head. So why, torture yourself to those comparisons? But I think basically it was made for others. Mine was also made for others. So it was the others who had to decide what they make of it. You know what I mean?
Thank you so much, Mr. Ali, for sparing the time. I'm really looking forward to watching the restored version and looking at the coffee table book as well. Thank you so much for sparing the time.